I stood outside the glass doors, my hands trembling around a folded piece of paper. Inside, the chandeliers sparkled like everything was perfect. Champagne glasses clinked. Laughter floated through the air like I'd never existed. A week ago, I was told, "It's probably better if you don't come. We don't want drama." As if I were the problem. As if I hadn't held this family together when Mom died. As if I hadn't loaned them the money when the venue deposit fell through. And now, I wasn't even invited. They said I was too emotional, too dramatic. But you know what? Sometimes the truth needs a little drama. So I walked in, not to beg, not to cry, but to speak. Loud and clear. Because when they humiliated me that night, they forgot one thing. I never, ever stay quiet for long. Have you ever been treated like a ghost at your own family's event? Comment where you're watching from if you've ever felt like the outsider. My name is Emily Carter, born and raised in Charleston, South Carolina. I'm the eldest of three, my brother Josh and my sister Maddie. You'd think being the oldest would come with some level of respect. Responsibility? Sure. But respect? Not in this family. Growing up, I was the helper. The one who cleaned up after dinners, who made sure Maddie's lunch was packed, who sat with Josh when he had asthma attacks and Mom couldn't miss work. Maddie, on the other hand, was the princess. Blue eyes, ballet shoes, and a smile that made people bend over backwards. It wasn't her fault, I guess. That's just how it was. She was delicate, dreamy, magnetic. I was the capable one. I still remember the day Dad left. Maddie was 8. Josh was 5. I was 11. He left a note on the kitchen table, a few $100 tucked beneath it, and his wedding ring inside an old coffee mug. Mom cried for days. I remember holding her in the hallway while she sobbed into my shoulder. After that, I practically became a second mom. School, groceries, babysitting. I didn't have the luxury of rebellion or dance recitals. My childhood slipped through my fingers like sand. But despite the imbalance, I loved my siblings. Especially Maddie. She and I had a bond once. When we were little, we'd build pillow forts and pretend we were hiding from the world. I'd read her stories until she fell asleep. She'd call me Em the Brave. And for a while, I believed her. Even in college, I kept playing that role. I stayed in state to help Mom. I picked up part-time jobs while Maddie went off to New York to study fashion. Everyone cheered for her, sent money, gifts, graduation announcements. When I graduated early with honors and got accepted into a law program, the family group chat barely noticed. Maddie posted a selfie with a frappuccino the next day and got 237 likes. Still, I never complained. I just kept showing up, even when I shouldn't have. Like when Maddie got dumped by her first serious boyfriend, Ryan. She cried to me for hours, and I drove 5 hours in the rain just to bring her ice cream and sit on her floor while she told me how unlovable she felt. But things changed when she met Ethan. He was from a wealthy family, the kind who summered in Cape Cod and had wine cellars. Ethan was charming, polite, and extremely polished. At first, I liked him, until I noticed how he subtly looked down on me. Like when I told him I worked in public interest law, and he said, "Oh, so like charity law," with that smirk. He never said anything outright cruel, but he didn't have to. And Maddie started changing around him. She'd correct me in front of him, interrupt me, roll her eyes when I talked about cases I was passionate about. I felt like an old piece of furniture, still in the room, but not part of the conversation. Then came the engagement announcement. Mom was ecstatic. She cried when Maddie showed her the ring. Josh sent champagne. I wasn't even told directly. I found out through Instagram. A carefully filtered photo of Ethan on one knee at some vineyard. The caption? He said yes to forever. I remember reading it in the middle of a client meeting. My stomach turned. I hadn't even met Ethan's parents yet, hadn't been asked to be a bridesmaid. When I called Maddie to ask about it, she laughed and said, "Oh, I didn't want you to feel obligated. You're so busy with your work stuff." Work stuff. The wedding planning went on without me. No calls. No opinions asked. No fittings or brunches. I was told the date 2 weeks before the save the dates went out. Still, I showed up. I sent gifts. I RSVP'd yes. Because that's what family does, right? But deep down, I felt it. Something had shifted. Maddie had always gotten more love, more attention, but now she had an audience. She didn't need me to play older sister anymore. That part of the show had ended. And yet, despite it all, I still hoped maybe, just maybe, I'd have a moment during the rehearsal dinner or a hug before the walk down the aisle where she'd look at me and say, "Thanks for everything. I love you." That maybe she'd remember the forts, the stories, and the brave. But instead, I got silence. And then, humiliation. But we'll get to that. The first real crack showed at the engagement party. It was held at Ethan's parents' estate in Savannah, Georgia. This sprawling colonial-style mansion with marble floors and a backyard that looked like something out of a bridal magazine. The kind of place where caterers wear earpieces and champagne is served like water. I drove 4 hours straight from court. I barely had time to change clothes in my car. I remember looking at myself in the visor mirror, my blazer wrinkled, mascara smudged, and thinking, maybe tonight she'll notice I showed up for her. Again. I walked in with a gift, smiling. But no one looked my way. Maddie was glowing in a pale gold dress. She barely turned her head when she saw me. "Oh, Emily, you made it," she said, brushing her cheek against mine lightly. Then, to a nearby guest, "That's my sister, the lawyer." She didn't even say my name. Someone handed me a glass of something sparkling and fake sweet. I stood alone for most of the night, making awkward small talk with distant relatives and Ethan's father, Richard, who leaned in and asked with a chuckle, "So, are you the adopted one?" I laughed politely, assuming he was joking. He wasn't. That night, I sat at the very end of the dinner table near the kitchen door, across from the coat rack. They'd arranged it so that all the close family sat up front near the fireplace. My name wasn't even written on a place card. A caterer had to scribble one on a napkin. The next day, I texted Maddie. "Emily, hey, is everything okay? Felt a little left out yesterday." Maddie. "OMG, no. Sorry, things were crazy. You know how mom is." Ethan's family kind of took over the seating stuff. Kind of. I let it go. But it kept happening. At the bridal shower, I was invited, but with the wrong date. I showed up a day late, flowers in hand. The Airbnb was already cleaned up. Maddie laughed on the phone and said, "Wait, didn't you get the update?" "Oh no." And then, the worst, the bridesmaids group chat. I was never added. Josh told me about it by accident. He was texting Maddie and said, "Looks like you guys are going with blush pink dresses?" I hadn't even seen them. When I asked her directly, Maddie said, "Well, I figured you'd be too busy." And honestly, the vibe was just younger. No offense. Younger. I'm only 4 years older than her. But apparently, at 31, I'd aged out of the wedding aesthetic. Still, I kept trying. I offered to help with logistics. Suggested a playlist. I even volunteered to pay for the flowers because Ethan's family was cutting back on the budget. Maddie thanked me via Venmo note. No call. No text. Just, "For peonies, thanks, Em." Then came the dress drama. I bought a slate blue gown. Classy, floor length. Nothing flashy. A week before the wedding, I got a call from Aunt Nancy. "Sweetheart, I think Maddie's a little concerned your dress might be too close to the bridal party color scheme." I was stunned. "Wait, isn't the bridal color blush?" "Well, yes, but you know how lighting can change everything in photos. Maybe something navy? Just to be safe." So, I returned the gown. Paid rush fees for a different one. On the morning of the rehearsal dinner, I arrived wearing navy, and guess what? 3 of the bridesmaids were in slate blue. When I whispered it to Maddie, she just blinked and said, "Oh, really? Huh. Weird." No apology. No acknowledgement. Nothing. Later that evening, I overheard 2 of her friends, Sophie and Kayla, in the bathroom. Sophie. Why is her sister always so intense? Kayla. I know. She gives main character syndrome, but in a courtroom drama. Sophie. Laughs. I swear she wears trauma like a fashion statement. I walked out of the stall, looked them both in the eyes, and said, "At least I wear my own story. You two borrow other people's." I didn't wait for a response. I just left. Later that night, Maddie texted, "Maddie, can you not cause scenes this weekend? This is stressful enough."
Scenes.
I was the scene, not the girls who mocked me, not the seating exclusion, not the changing dresses or overlooked invites.
Me.
I was the inconvenience, not the sister who raised her, not the one who caught her when she fell off the swing set and scraped her chin, not the one who sewed her Halloween costume by hand when mom forgot, not the one who sent money, kept her secrets, stayed up late with her through college heartbreaks.
Just an inconvenience now.
A shadow in her perfect spotlight. But the worst part, even after everything, I still planned to attend the wedding. I still told myself, maybe something will shift. Maybe she'll see me again. But instead, she buried me one final time. In front of everyone. And that was the beginning of the end. The morning of the wedding was warm, a little too warm for late spring in Charleston. The air was thick with humidity, and even the birds seemed quieter than usual. My navy dress was steamed, my shoes were polished, and I'd curled my hair for the first time in months. Despite everything, I stood in front of the mirror and said out loud, "Today is not about you. It's her day. Don't make it about you." But as much as I tried to shrink, fate, or maybe Maddie, had other plans. The venue was a restored plantation house, picturesque and painfully perfect. White chairs lined the aisle under a canopy of Spanish moss. A quartet played gentle music as guests arrived in pastels and pearls. I took a seat toward the back, alone. No place card, no warm welcome, just me and my internal monologue whispering, "Don't cry. Don't react." About 30 minutes into the seating process, Ethan's cousin Rachel approached with a confused smile. "Hey, you're Emily, right? The officiant." I blinked. "The what?" "Maddie said you'd be giving the opening blessing or something?" I shook my head. I wasn't asked to speak.
Oh, weird.
Maybe I misunderstood. She walked off, and I felt the first crack split open inside me. I stood, trying to collect myself, and made my way around the garden toward the refreshment table. That's when I heard Richard, Ethan's father, talking to a group of guests. My name caught my ear. "Yeah, Maddie's sister? Always a bit too intense. Law career, single, kind of a downer. Didn't even bring a +1. I mean, she means well, I guess." They laughed. I froze. And then I heard Maddie's voice behind them, whispering, "She has this savior complex. Always thinking she's the glue. But not everything is about her. She'll be fine. She always lands on her feet." I stumbled back like I'd been physically hit. I made it to the bathroom, locked the stall, and stared at my shaking hands. My breath came in shallow bursts. For a moment, I wanted to leave. Just disappear quietly. Take my dignity and go. But then I saw the text. A group photo had been posted on Instagram.
The bridal party. My whole family.
Even Josh. All smiling. The caption? "Surrounded by the people who've been there for me, through everything." I wasn't in it. And then I read a comment from someone I didn't know. "Where's your sister? I thought she helped raise you." Maddie replied, "Some people are better at writing the past than showing up for the present." That was it. Something inside me snapped. Not in anger, but in clarity. I opened my purse and pulled out the letter. It was a copy of a journal entry Mom had written a year before she passed, one that I'd found in a shoebox while going through her things. In it she wrote, "Emily worries so much. She holds this whole family together without even realizing it. I wish I could give her more. But I know one day, when Maddie gets married, she'll see it. She'll know who her real mother was." I folded the letter neatly, walked outside, and made my way toward the altar. Guests were still mingling. The ceremony hadn't started yet. I climbed the 3 small steps up to the platform, my heels tapping against the wood. Conversations trailed off. A few phones lifted, unsure of what was happening. Maddie turned, her veil clipped to perfection, her face stunned. "Emily, what are you?" I raised my hand. Don't worry. I won't be long. I cleared my throat, heart hammering. I spoke into the silence. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Emily Carter, the bride's older sister. The one who, for some reason, has been invisible all week. A nervous laugh rippled through the guests. I wasn't going to say anything. I came here to celebrate, despite being told, directly and indirectly, that I wasn't welcome. But silence becomes complicity, and I've been complicit in my own erasure for too long. I held up the letter. This is something our mother wrote. Some of you may not remember her well. She died young.
But she saw me.
And she saw everything. My voice cracked, but I kept going. She wrote this after I tucked Maddie into bed one night, after a breakup. After staying up with Josh when he couldn't breathe. After cooking dinner when the power went out. She wrote that I was the glue. And yet here I am seated in the back, called intense, mocked in bathrooms, written out of family photos. I turned to Maddie, who was frozen in place. You told people I have a savior complex. Maybe I do. Maybe I've spent too long saving others in hopes someone would one day save me. But not anymore. I folded the paper slowly, slid it into Maddie's bouquet, and stepped down. No one said a word. Just wind rustling through the trees. The quartet had stopped playing. The air was thick with the kind of silence only truth can create. I walked past the stunned guests, past Ethan's gaping parents, past Sophie and Kayla, who suddenly had nothing clever to say. I didn't run. I didn't cry. I walked out, like a woman finally uninvited from her own illusion. And for the first time in years, I felt free. The door closed behind me with a soft click, but the world outside the venue roared in my chest. I didn't drive off. I sat in my car, hands gripping the steering wheel, staring through the windshield as guests filed out, confused, awkward, hushed. I saw my Uncle Ray whispering something to Aunt Lisa. I saw Josh looking around, clearly searching for me. But I didn't move. Not yet. I was waiting. I didn't even know for what. Maybe for Maddie. Maybe for someone to chase me down. Maybe just for my own body to stop shaking. 10 minutes passed. Then 15. And then there she was. Maddie, walking fast in her wedding dress, veil flapping, face red and jaw tight. She yanked open the passenger door and hissed, "Get out of the car." I stepped out slowly, standing just outside the gravel drive. "What the hell was that, Emily?" she snapped. I stayed quiet. "You think that was fair? You think hijacking my wedding was the right thing to do?" I folded my arms.
No.
I think years of being treated like a backup dancer finally snapped something inside me. This day wasn't about you. Then maybe you shouldn't have made me your punchline at every opportunity. She looked at me like I'd slapped her. "Excuse me?" "I heard you. Behind the tent. With Richard. With your friends. The way you all speak about me, like I'm some charity case. Like I'm bitter. Jealous. Too intense. I've played nice for 30 years, Maddie. I've cleaned your messes, dried your tears, sacrificed everything for this family. And today, for once, I told the truth." She blinked. "You always think you're the martyr. Because someone had to be. You floated through life while I scrubbed the kitchen floor, while I drove Josh to the ER at 2 a.m., while I sat in Mom's chemo appointments so you could go to dance class. That was your choice."
No.
That was survival. That was what big sisters do when their mom is dying and their dad's gone. I never asked to be the parent. I became it. And you forgot that somewhere along the way. Maddie's eyes filled, but she didn't cry. "You embarrassed me. In front of everyone. And you've humiliated me for years. Quietly. Subtly. So no one could see it but me. You've weaponized perfection. You've made me feel like I'm too much and never enough at the same time.
And you know what?
I'm done shrinking." She opened her mouth, but I raised my hand. "I'm not here to argue. I'm here to draw a line." I reached into my purse and pulled out a small envelope. Her name was written on it in Mom's handwriting. "This was for you. From Mom. I found it last year in her sewing box. I wasn't going to give it to you. I figured, what's the point?
But now?
You need it. She took it silently. I stepped closer. This letter says she hoped you'd grow up to see me one day. See me for who I am. Not as your fixer, not as your fallback, but as your sister. Your equal. Well, I turned around before she could speak again. But I wasn't done. At the reception, word had spread. People were awkward. Some avoided me. Others came up quietly and whispered. That took guts. A few even hugged me. But then came the confrontation I didn't expect from Ethan. He cornered me by the catering tent, his mouth tight. You ruined Maddie's day. I tilted my head. Did I? You blindsided everyone.
Good.
Now we're even. You're a child. I smiled. And you're a coward hiding behind monogrammed cufflinks and whispered jabs. Enjoy the show. I walked away. Later, Josh found me near the gravel path, his face pale. I had no idea, he said quietly. I swear. I shrugged. You were the golden boy. No reason to notice. That's not fair. Neither is what I've swallowed for 30 years. He looked at me, guilt settling into his shoulders like heavy snow. I'm sorry. Then say something.
To them.
Not to me. I didn't stay for the reception. I drove home in silence, the late sun turning the highway gold. That night, I posted a single photo of the letter Mom had written. No caption. The next morning, it had over 200 comments. Some from old friends. Some from people I didn't know. All saying the same thing. Thank you for saying what so many of us never dared to. In the days that followed, Maddie texted a few times. Can we talk? That wasn't how I wanted things to go. I read Mom's letter. I didn't respond. Not yet. I needed space. But more than that, I needed to stop bleeding for people who never noticed I was cut in the first place. The Monday after the wedding, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. I left it face down on the kitchen counter, let the notifications pile up. Voicemails from relatives I hadn't spoken to in years. Group texts blinking with tension. Instagram tags. Facebook messages. Even emails. I didn't open a single one. Instead, I sat on the floor of my apartment in Charleston, eating leftover Thai takeout, surrounded by silence. There were no glittery centerpieces, no champagne flutes clinking, no manicured speeches, or fake smiles. Just peace. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel invisible. I felt seen by myself. But grief has a strange way of sneaking in. That night, I dreamed of Mom. She was sitting at our old kitchen table, wearing her favorite flannel shirt, sipping coffee from her chipped, world's best mom mug. She looked at me with tired eyes and simply said, "You did what I never could, baby." I woke up crying. The next few days were quiet in a way that felt both soothing and hollow. The kind of silence that follows a storm, where you're not sure what's been destroyed and what's just been rearranged. I finally opened Maddie's texts. Please call me. I don't know what to say. Can we meet? I'm sorry. I stared at the word sorry like it was written in another language. I didn't reply. Not out of spite, but out of self-preservation. The same way you don't reopen a wound you've finally stopped bleeding from. Instead, I started journaling. Something I hadn't done in years. Each night, I wrote one truth I'd kept inside for too long. I never felt loved by my family. I felt useful. They valued my sacrifices, but not me. My silence was mistaken for strength. A week later, Aunt Lisa dropped by unannounced. She brought banana bread and a face full of concern. I just wanted to check in, honey. We sat on my porch. She looked down at her hands, then back at me. You know, when your mom passed, we all should have done more. You were just a kid. But you became everyone's anchor. I nodded, but didn't speak. I'm sorry for not seeing it then. I see it now. I thanked her.
Genuinely.
She wasn't the only one who reached out. Kayla, surprisingly, sent a voice note. Hey, I owe you an apology. That thing I said in the bathroom, it was catty and cruel.
And you were right.
I do borrow other people's stories. Mostly because I've been too afraid to live my own. She paused. Anyway, I hope you're okay.
I didn't respond.
But I saved the message. Not for her, for me. Proof that speaking up echoes, even in the places we thought were soundproof. The family group chat went quiet for a while. Then one day it split. Josh started a new one. Just me, him, and a few cousins. No Maddie. No Ethan. No forced smiles. Just realness. He messaged. I told her she crossed the line. Told her I'm not okay with how she treated you.
She cried.
But she needed to hear it. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then replied, "Thank you." It was the first time I felt like someone stood beside me, not just behind me. As the weeks passed, I began reflecting on more than just the wedding. I thought about every time I'd been excluded. Every time my name had been an afterthought. My presence tolerated, but not cherished. I remembered the Christmas I spent alone in my dorm room because Maddie needed everyone at home after a breakup. The graduation dinner that was canceled because Josh got food poisoning and everyone was too tired to reschedule. The countless birthdays marked by late-night texts and no cards. And the thing is, I let it happen because I thought that's what love meant, being available, being reliable, being forgettable.
But now?
Now I was learning a new definition. One evening, I found myself scrolling through an old photo album. Tucked between pictures of summer lake trips and birthday parties was a photo I hadn't seen in years. Me, age 13, sitting on the porch with Maddie asleep on my shoulder and Josh sitting at my feet with his inhaler. I looked so tired, so old for my age, and yet so full of love. I touched the image gently. "You did good," I whispered to that girl. "You carried them. But now, it's okay to carry yourself." The turning point came unexpectedly. I got a message from a woman named Heather, someone I'd once worked with on a pro bono domestic violence case. "Hey, I saw your wedding story on a mutual friend's IG. I just want to say thank you for speaking up. I've kept quiet for too long. You gave me courage." And then it clicked. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about the hundreds, maybe thousands, of people who spend their lives being the strong one, the quiet one, the one who can handle it. It was about us. That weekend, I sat down with a glass of wine, opened my laptop, and started writing a blog post. The wedding I wasn't invited to, and why I crashed it anyway. I poured my heart into it. The favoritism, the silencing,
The speech.
the fallout, the letter from Mom. I posted it anonymously at first. By morning, it had been shared 10,000 times. By that evening, 60,000. Emails flooded in. People saying they felt seen, that they were the Emily in their own families. People begging me to write more. And so I did. Because sometimes the aftermath isn't about picking up broken pieces. Sometimes, it's about realizing you were never broken. You were just unseen.
And now?
Now I see myself clearly, even if they never do. It's funny how healing doesn't begin with some grand epiphany. It starts small. For me, it began on a rainy Thursday morning with a cinnamon roll and a woman named Teresa. She was the therapist I'd been referred to by a former colleague, someone who specialized in family systems and long-term emotional burnout. I sat across from her, the rain tapping gently against the window behind her, and I remember she didn't ask, "So, what happened?" She simply said, "Tell me when you first started disappearing." I broke. Not because I was sad, but because someone finally noticed I had. Week by week, I unpacked decades of emotional labor. We talked about hyper-responsibility, parentification, people-pleasing, all the ways I had contorted myself to keep peace, win love, and stay small enough not to disrupt anyone else's comfort. I stopped blaming myself for needing to be seen. Teresa would say, "Emily, boundaries are not barriers. They're doors you choose who to open for." That stuck. I began setting boundaries with my family, not out of bitterness, but with clarity. When Maddie invited me for a reset lunch, I politely declined. "Right now, I'm working on healing. I wish you well, but I can't resume a relationship that hasn't evolved." No drama. No guilt trip, just truth.
She didn't respond.
And that was okay, because I had started investing in people who actually saw me. One of those people was Erica, a former law school classmate I'd lost touch with years ago. She reached out after reading my blog and said, "I always knew you had a fire in you." We started meeting weekly, walks, coffee, yoga. She was part of my new ecosystem. Friends who didn't want anything from me but presence and authenticity. People who texted, "Thinking of you," without needing a reply. People who celebrated me without performance. I call them my chosen family. That fall, I joined a grief writing group. At first, I thought I didn't belong. I hadn't lost someone recently. But then I realized I had. I lost an illusion. A version of family that I desperately clung to. Week after week, I shared stories, not just about the wedding but about childhood. About being the strong one, the reliable one, the one who never got to fall apart. And the others? They nodded. They cried. They held space. I wasn't alone. Around the same time, I began volunteering at a youth mentorship program for girls who'd lost their mothers. The first girl I was paired with, Sierra, was 12. Quiet, guarded, brilliant. One day, she asked, "Did your mom write you letters too?" I smiled. Just one. But it changed everything. Sierra said, "I write them to myself. I sign her name." Is that weird? I said, "It's brave." Professionally, I'd always been a solid attorney. But now, I wanted more. I launched a side project called Daughter Rising, a digital space for women navigating generational trauma and family estrangement. It started as a blog, then became a newsletter, then a support forum. Within months, it had 1,000 subscribers, and then 5,000, and then a TEDx event asked me to speak. I stood on that stage in a fitted black blazer, my voice calm but unwavering. We talk about grief as something that happens when people die. But what about the grief when someone you love stops loving you well? When they see your function but not your face? The truth is, some people won't clap for your healing. Some will mourn the version of you that tolerated everything. Let them. Mourn what you need to. And then begin. The crowd rose. And I knew this was my real beginning. One night, months later, I sat on my balcony with a cup of tea and a letter in my lap. It was from Josh. Handwritten. I'm sorry I didn't speak up sooner. I thought staying neutral meant being kind. But it meant being absent. Thank you for crashing that wedding. It woke us up. Mom would be proud of you. I'm proud of you. I cried. Not from sadness. From release. They say healing is a journey. I think it's a quiet rebellion. A slow, sacred claiming of space, your space, after a lifetime of shrinking. And every morning now, I wake up and say 3 words to myself. You stayed. You mattered. You're here. And I am. If you're still watching, thank you. This wasn't just a story about a wedding. It was about something far deeper, something many of us carry quietly for years. It's about the moment you realize you've been showing up for people who stopped seeing you a long time ago. It's about the pain of being the strong one. The one who never needed help. The one who held everyone else together until you couldn't anymore. Maybe you've been there. Maybe you're still there. Maybe you've laughed at your own exclusion to avoid crying over it. Maybe you've convinced yourself that silence was strength because you were afraid of what would happen if you spoke up. Let me tell you something I wish someone had told me sooner. You are not difficult for having boundaries. You are not selfish for wanting to be seen. You are not dramatic for needing to be loved well. I know that some people watching this will say, but it was just a wedding.
Or,
why not just let it go?
to them, I say,
It's never just a wedding when the people who raised you rewrite your worth in front of strangers. It's never just a dinner table when your seat is always the folding chair in the corner. It's never just a comment when your entire identity has been shaped around being too much and not enough in the same breath. These aren't moments. They're patterns. And when you finally stand up, when you speak the truth everyone pretends not to hear, people call you the disruption. But you're not the problem. You're the light breaking through years of comfortable darkness. So, here's my invitation to you. If any part of my story felt like a mirror, if you've ever been the invisible one, the overlooked one, the dependable one who is silently drowning, drop a dove in the comments. Let me know where you're watching from. Let me know if you've ever had to grieve someone who is still alive. Let's not stay silent anymore. Because silence doesn't keep the peace. It keeps the pattern. I'd love to hear your story. How have you reclaimed your voice? What boundaries have you had to build? Even when it hurt. This is your space too. Use it. If you're new here, welcome. I'm Emily. This channel isn't just for storytelling, it's for soul-telling. And if you believe in the power of truth, healing, and breaking cycles,
Hit that like button.
subscribe to the channel. And share this video with someone who needs to know. Family is not who shares your blood, it's who shows up when it matters. You are worthy. You are whole. And most of all, you are no longer alone.